governmental institutions, and the number of papers she has written both in national and international journals. In fact, if I remember it correctly, quite some time back, I had read an article by Professor Sharma, Healing a Broken Spirit, in an Ahmedabad journal. I liked it. It's a general article, good for everyone from all walks of life, and not not as a political scientist, not as an administrator, not only as an or any other field. It covers almost all the fields. I like that article very much. Though I have already retired and not much uh, connection with the university, my university, Delhi universities. But I've heard a lot and I pray for it. My prayers and best wishes. Now, in spite of our limited resources and limited environment, we have got a person of Professor Sharma's caliber, not only known in national but international fields, to speak to us, to our students. So let me not stand between you and Professor Sharma. And let me now request the professor and the principal of our institute, College of Commerce and Business Administration, Professor Saurabh Agrawal, to introduce Professor Sharma, give a formal introduction to the audience. Professor Saurabh Agrawal. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor K.K. Panda, who has been former registrar of University of Delhi. Respected Dr. C.S. Sharma ji, who has been my teacher and a renowned professor. But before I introduce him, let me discuss with you a small information about IIF, College of Commerce. Commerce and Management Studies is a part of the Chaudhary Charan Singh University, formerly Meerut University. We are currently offering BBA, sorry, I just lost my connection, just a second. And our BCom has 20 papers. The BCom is in annual mode and BBA is in semester mode. The details of the syllabus are given on the website. The student can register on university website and then based on merit list, his selection will be there. There is no entrance test for BBA or BCom. This is our campus in Greater Noida, Knowledge Park 3. This is former principal of Shri Ram College, Professor J.L. Gupta, who visited the campus and discussed leadership. This is the current principal of Shri Ram College of Commerce, Professor Simrit Kaur, who has also been to IIF. Last week, we had organized one webinar by Professor Anil Kumar. And this is our library. We are fortunate to have a very beautiful library with over 55,000 books and 900 technical journals. This is the project section, computer lab, indoor gym. Now this is the managing committee. With us today is Professor K.K. and I am there, and Professor Aman Agarwal will give the vote of thanks. Very esteemed, all people are really stalwarts in their area. Founder is Professor D. Agarwal. Then from IIPA, Professor P.K. Chaube, Professor Aman Agarwal from IIF, Mr. Saurabh Sharma is from EXL, Mr. Deepak Bansal from IIF, Dr. J.P. Sharma from Delhi School of Economics, Delhi University, Shri Sunil Goyal ji is an advocate, Professor A.L. Agarwal from IIT Delhi, retired professor from IIT Delhi, Dr. Manju Agarwal retired from Motilal Nehru College, University of Delhi. This is the managing committee. This is the current faculty. So we are taking support from IIF also, and we have our own core faculty, which is given here. We undertake many activities, like last year we planted 100 trees, and this year we are going to plant 500 trees on campus in association with Rotary. The last year we had done this in 2000, last time we did it in 2019 with IASRD. And this year we are doing it with South Delhi Rotary. We also organize plant visits. So with this, I stop the presentation of the college. And now I would like to introduce Dr. C.S. Sharma ji, who needs actually no introduction, but I've been formally asked to do so. He is currently professor at Shri Ram College of Commerce, and he is also visiting faculty to a number of institutions. Apart from this, he has done MCOM and his area of specialization includes research methodology, finance, and commerce. Now I would request Professor C.S. Sharma to kindly discuss his views on the topic. Thank you.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Sir Panda, Professor J.D. Agarwal, I hope he is somewhere here. Professor Saurabh, Professor Ashok Kamal, and the participants. I hope I am audible.
Yes, yes.
Okay. I hope there is no echo here. The voice is clear.
Absolutely no echo.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, voice is clear, sir.
All right. So today the topic is about the two good courses, BCom Honors and BBA, and the role of research in mastering these courses. You see, I will start my discussion with one small idea of Chanakya that was thrown by Chanakya. More than 2,300 or 400 years back, this idea came in say, 2nd century BC. But the idea is very relevant today. He said, only that education is relevant which has commercial value. Now he uses very strong words in the sense that only that education. He says this, and he's talking about the real world. He's not talking of the metaphysical world. He's not talking of a world where people are oriented towards spirituality or going to God. Maybe this idea may not be acceptable to them. And today, maybe this idea is not acceptable to the idea of what we call liberal ideology. But in terms of practice, in terms of the practical world, only that education is relevant, only that language is relevant, which can get you economic well-being. And nobody, even if one is liberal, would deny the fact that economics and commerce govern our life from the moment we are born till we die. The moment we are born, we have to be taken care of with medicines, with nourishment. And these medicines and nourishments will come from commerce. A product becomes available to the people only through commerce. And when we die, whether we are to be burnt or buried, we need things, whether it is wood for burning or we need a casket for burying, that comes through commercial things. And look around yourself, ladies and gentlemen. Look around yourself. You have air conditioners, tables, chairs, mobiles, or laptops, or computer systems through which we are communicating today. All these things would have remained within the laboratory of the scientists if these had not been commercialized by the business people. So first and foremost thing, therefore, that education which prepares you for economic contribution, for economic independence, for economic earning, that education is the relevant education. And this stands today, and it stands corrected. Even when some of the people say, no, education has to be for purposes other than commerce, other than commercial purposes, when these people speak, they also must understand one thing, that their sustenance will also come from the commerce done by maybe somebody else, maybe from the taxes which are collected by the government and are distributed to others who are not contributing economically. So first and fundamental thing, first and foremost thing, therefore, is in life, commerce. We breathe good air because of commerce. If you are sitting in an air-conditioned room, from where is air conditioning coming? It is coming from an equipment called air conditioner. But who has brought air conditioner there? From scientist's lab to your room, it is the commerce person, economics person, the business person who has brought it there. We talk of forests, we talk of plantations, we talk of farmers. Even they have to depend on seeds, fertilizer, water, irrigation system. Who implements it? How it is implemented? Ultimately, it is the money part of it which is behind all these projects, which brings them in. And the moment you bring money in, commerce comes in, my dear friends. So first thing, ladies and gentlemen, let us start with this idea that if you are studying commerce, you are studying the most real, most practical part of the knowledge system. Most practical, I am saying, most relevant, I am saying, and I'm prioritizing, that's it. It does not mean that I'm negating other disciplines, but I'm only prioritizing that this is the most important. Science is undoubtedly very important. It creates innovations. Computer science is also very important. It creates an iterative, unbounded technology. Artificial intelligence it is creating. I agree. But everything comes from lab to the people through commerce. This is my first point that I wanted to make. Now, having said this, question is how commerce education should be delivered. What should be that mode? So there are two aspects to this. One is the recipient, the student, and the other is the teacher or the institution which is delivering this. That is to say, the pedagogy, the method of teaching. What is it that facilitates learning? So for facilitating learning, there are a few principles which have been there eternally. One principle, very simple. In very simple words, it was said, it was stated that karat karat abhyas ke jad mati hot sujan. Rasri avat jate sir par parat nisan. That fundamental principle of learning, that it is practice. Jalamati hot sujan. Karat karat abhyas ke. If we practice and practice and practice, then jalamati. Now see the use of the choice of the word. Jalamati, the mati, the buddhi, which is jad, which is incapable of, jad means which is stone, which is not moving, which is inorganic, that mati. Jad mati, that is the choice by the poet. He says, karat karat abhyas ke jadamati, a mati, a buddhi, which is jad, which is completely like a stone, that becomes sujan, that becomes sujan means good knowledge, that becomes endowed, that buddhi becomes endowed with good knowledge and wisdom. So if you want to get knowledge and wisdom both, then the first principle is practice and practice and practice, my dear friends. Now here, I would like to say that when we are talking of the learning systems, or when we are talking of the knowledge systems for that matter, the knowledge or the learning occurs at 4 different levels. First level is what we will call simple facts. Facts means numbers or statements of truth, generalizations of truth. These can be stated in isolation, but they stand correct. Or the numbers, simple facts. And when those facts are given a certain formation, they are presented in a logical manner, like for example in the form of tables, or they are presented by establishing interrelations between the facts. That is, if form is given, if formation is given to the information, to the facts, then that becomes information. That is second level of learning, or second level of knowledge, second level of understanding. The third level of knowledge or understanding would be, we would say that the knowledge or the information, from facts we have gone to information. When information is interpreted, that becomes knowledge. That is the third level, interpretation. Interpretation for achieving certain goals, for achieving certain purposes. And final and fourth level is, we call it wisdom. When knowledge is implemented for the greater good of greater number of people, then we call it wisdom. Enlighten the knowledge. In Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna says, Jnanam Vijnana Sahitam Yat Gyatva Mokshasi Shubhat. This is the first shlok of 9th chapter. Jnanam Vijnana Sahitam. Jnana Vijnana Sahit. It means knowledge with wisdom. Knowledge with wisdom, Jnanam Vijnana Sahitam Yat Gyatva, knowing which Mokshasi Shubhat. Because of which, if you know this, if you have knowledge with wisdom, then there will be moksha and shubh, which means enlightenment and auspiciousness. We have to gain knowledge, but knowledge has to be gained with wisdom. And if the knowledge is with wisdom, it will give you enlightenment on one hand, and it will create auspiciousness on the other. These are the important things about the knowledge. So we have knowledge at the level of fact, at the level of information, at the level of knowledge, and at the level of wisdom, with the ultimate goal that it should lead to auspiciousness and it should lead to enlightenment. Now, question is, how can we create a teaching, learning system which is oriented towards creating a wisdom ultimately, which will lead to auspiciousness and which will lead to enlightenment? The method for this involves 2 things. Number 1, the self of the student, himself or herself, that the student must develop the habit of practicing. Karat karat abhyas ke. In Bhagavad Gita, in 8th chapter, Shri Krishna says at one place that abhyas yog yukten chetasa jnangamina. Abhyas yukta. He says chetasa jnanagamina, which means the attention should not go elsewhere. Nowhere else should the attention go. Where should it be? Abhyas yukta. The attention has to be involved in practice. So this is one aspect which has to be taken care of for the learning purposes by the students. Now, why I am saying this, I will say now comes the system, the role of the institution, the role of the teachers, the method through which this can be actually achieved. What is the role of the institution? What is the role of the teacher in bringing about the motivation in the student that he will practice and practice and practice? This can be done, my dear friends, if there is an element of research in the learning and teaching. What is research? Research is simple, that you look for something new. There are a few aspects of teaching or learning. These aspects are, number one, there has to be a concept. When we are teaching a particular subject, particular topic, then first and foremost thing is that a concept has to be understood or a concept has to be explained. Second aspect is that the concept should be attached with skill. That is, it should teach you to be doing something, practical. That is second, doing, skill. And third aspect is applying that skill, that is the application. And the fourth thing, my dear friends, is after this, that we use it for creating welfare in the society, either for your own welfare or for the welfare of your family, welfare of your state, welfare of your nation, or welfare of the humanity. So these humanity in general. So that means concept, skill, application with an orientation towards greater good of large number of people. Now, if a concept has to be understood, this can be well understood when we go deep into it. And how do we go deep into it? We can go deep into it if we try to discover its application, how it can be applied. If we try to discover its aspects relating to skill, and if we try to understand how it can really be used for the greater good of the people. That is how it will happen. And this happens with the help of research. And research is of 2-3 types here. At the level of undergraduate level, what type of research can we expect to take place? Simple thing. For example, say I am teaching you a simple idea in the classroom which comes from curriculum, and that leads to team building. Now, obviously, I can give you a theory in the classroom. I can come and deliver you a lecture on how to build a team, how team can be motivated, how relationships should be built among the team members. But if I have to train you in becoming a good team leader or a good team member, then I would prefer that I will give you a small assignment where you will work as a team. For example, I can ask you, go get the sponsorship for conducting a function in the college relating to entrepreneurship, or you organize a festival on entrepreneurship in the college. Very simple thing. It may look like an ordinary activity, but no, it involves some practical research. In terms of what? In terms of finding out, first of all, the database of the organizations which can give you sponsorship. Now, while you are making a list of the institutions or business organizations or companies which can perhaps give you sponsorship, what are you doing? You are getting trained in the concept or in the practice of looking for database for a particular objective. Here the objective is given, one objective is given to you. Maybe you will be trained enough here in one objective, but the learning that you have gained from here, that can be applied at other places also. This is what teaching and learning essentially is. For example, apart from that, you have to assign tasks. When you get these, go and talk to the people there. When you go and talk to the business organizations and make your presentations about what you do over there. Now, obviously, learning is taking place. How to talk and present your ideas and convince others. A simple thing. It's a practical learning essentially taking place in the process. And the learning is not merely, learning is in the sense that you commit mistakes while talking. And when you come back, then you reflect. You discuss it with your friends. Maybe you discuss with your teachers. And you get to know what actually the mistakes that you committed, that you succeeded or did not succeed in getting the sponsorship. And thirdly, when you organize the event, then you are learning various tasks, my dear friends. How to delegate, how to divide work, how to create reporting lines within your team, who will do what, where, what will be the control center within the organization when you do it, and so on. This is a very small thing that I have told you about one. That is practical dimension of the learning. Second, I'll give you one example. At Shri Ram College of Commerce, we gave a project to our students. The project was for the purposes of gathering data. It was a statistics project, and the project was this. Research was to be done. We gave the project to the students like this, that please tell us how we can reduce the traffic congestion on the road in front of Shri Ram College of Commerce, Delhi School of Economics, St. Stephen's, and law faculty. Simple project was given to the students. You go and do this, do your research, and you give us the data regarding this. And what the students did, they went and at different hours, what is the volume of traffic at different hours and in which direction? They collected data, number of vehicles, types of vehicles, all right? And when they gathered all this data, they created tables, simple tables. They created pie charts, simple pie charts. We teach all of these things in the classroom. Now here, whatever we had taught them, they not only did that, but also they developed certain charts on their own, which are not part of the curriculum. So their learning went beyond the curriculum. And this is what basic thing is. When you make the research-oriented learning, when you make research-oriented teaching, then the learning takes place not merely at the level of or within the confines or limitations of the curriculum or the syllabus. The learning automatically goes beyond the curriculum, beyond the learning, beyond the syllabus. And that means that your mental horizon gets widened. So naturally, automatically, as Shri Krishna said, and I quoted, Jnanam Vijnana Sahitam, Yat Gyatva Mokshasi Shubha. There is enlightenment, knowledge with wisdom. Wisdom automatically follows when you have research projects assigned to this. And interestingly, let me tell you this, that this particular project, when it was built up, these students, they made such a good project that it was presented to Lieutenant Governor of Delhi. And he showed a lot of interest in it. And later on, One of the students who went to Australia later for higher studies, he told me that this particular project was actually used similarly for the purposes of building a system for decongesting the roads in the city of Melbourne at the peak time. Now, this is the kind of thing. Look at the utility these students were able to create for themselves. So now I have given you example from statistics. Come to accounting for that matter. A fundamental thing for us and one of the core subjects of commerce and management. Because we know when a business organization is started, the first employee that must be employed should always be an accountant. And when we close a business down, remember one thing, the last person to come out of the premises and put the lock on the building, that person will also be an accountant. So important, because it is this person who from the moment the business starts, he keeps tracks of the financial flows, where the money is coming from, where the money is going out. Entire accounting has to be kept by this person. Now, if we have to master it, one way is very simple. We give examples in the classroom, you go to home, those examples, you put the entries, you make journal entries, then you make ledger, then you make trial balance, then you make balance sheet, and finally you create some ratios and implement. That is what the curriculum essentially is. But if suppose we give you a small project, what kind of transactions, what are the transactions of a manufacturing organization, and how those transactions are classified, put into journal and ledger by them. Go and do this. This project is given to you, the students. Now, what will you do then? Then your task will become absolutely practical. And you will know what exactly are the things happening practically, what kind of vouchers are being generated, how those vouchers are filed, and how those vouchers are then translated into journal, from journal to ledger, ledger to trial balance, and trial balance to balance sheet, and so on. And if we are able to give that kind of education, then obviously the learning will be the best learning. And here, one thing, let me tell you, my dear friends, a very important aspect of the learning is that however much a teacher may teach you in the classroom, however much, and however many times the teacher may teach you in the classroom, finally, ultimately, basically, essentially, your learning will take place when you learn it on your own. So we say, in the science of pedagogy, there is a tenet, and the tenet is that the best learning takes place when it is self-learned. When you learn on your own. And when do you get an opportunity to learn on your own? You get an opportunity to learn on your own when you have a project to do. When you have a research project to do, where you have to explore, where you have to find, where you have to search for information, for data, for analysis methods. And when that happens, when you explore, when you search, when you collect, when you organize the information, at that time, new insights come automatically to you. Those insights will never come by way of lecturing. For example, this lecture I'm giving right now. Psychologists say when a lecture is delivered, after 2 hours of listening to the lecture, only 5 to 8% of the information remains with the listener. And by next day, only 2% of the information is retained. And after a week or month, you only remember whether the lecture was good or bad. It means what? Lecturing is not going to help you in learning. Just after 2 hours, only 5% of the information will remain. So, but the information has to get absorbed. Information has to be imbibed, and information must be information that means knowledge information. And by this I mean concept, skill, application, and its utility for humanity. All these 4 aspects of the knowledge have to be absorbed and imbibed. And this can be then done only in one way. This can be done only when you practice. And how do you practice? You practice in a manner that you are able to not only understand the core aspect of what is told to you, but also the other related aspects. And this can happen when you conduct a research, when you explore. And remember one more thing, that the information has to be remembered. And if you forget the knowledge, then the knowledge will be useless. Remember, very famous story from Mahabharata. When the final battle was taking place between Arjun and Karna, what happened? Karna wanted to make use of a particular weapon, and he wanted to invoke that weapon, and he was not able to invoke because he had a curse. The curse was that you will forget the knowledge when you will need it most. And he forgot the knowledge he needed the most at the most crucial moment. And as a result, he was killed. Arjun succeeded in killing him. Now apply this particular incident to our teaching, learning today. And more from the point of view of you students, my dear friends. That knowledge what you learn in the institution, knowledge that you learn from the curriculum, knowledge that you learn from the syllabus, that knowledge must stay with you, must be absorbed by you, so that whenever the occasion arises, that knowledge comes to the fore, that comes to your memory, that comes to your frontal brain immediately, and you are able to make use of it. And if you are not able to do it, it is as good as not having learned. So fundamental thing is absorption of the knowledge. And absorption of the knowledge will take place when you not only learn the concept, but you learn also the skill related to it. You also learn the application about it, and also learn how it can be used for the good of the society as a whole. And this can be accomplished, as I said, when you learn different topics through different research projects. Say for example, we want to teach you about the microfinance. What is microfinance? A system in which very poor people who do not have a strong asset base, like for example, people living in slums, working as housemaids, working as at small salaries like guards, working as say drivers for that matter, the people at the lower end of the society economically. Now they need some money. So what they do? They go and they go to the money lender, local money lender mostly, and the local money lender, and they need only 600 rupees, 500 rupees. They need 1,000 rupees, 2,000 rupees. And for this, they are charged huge rate of interest even today. And that rate of interest is very often, you'll be surprised to know, research studies have shown, surveys have shown, that is as high as 60%. Now, I want you to understand, as a teacher, suppose, I want you to understand the need for microfinance on one hand, and two, mechanism of microfinance. How should I teach you? One is, I can give you a small lecture on it, just as a few sentences I made just now, and stop at that. Another way is that I give you a small research project. Go, dear friends, to the world outside. Make a survey. Talk to these people. About their needs, the purposes for which they need funds, extra loans. Number two, what is the range of amount in which they need the funds? What is the duration for which they need the funds? How much are they prepared to pay for it? Have they ever taken a loan like that? What is their experience in repaying that amount? How it affects their life? To make a questionnaire. I ask my students to make a questionnaire on this. Go and gather that data. So now you know the reality of the people regarding seeking small loans. And then I ask you, conduct a research project about what are the processes, practices, and the systems, procedures, and conditions that are followed by the institutions which are offering microfinance. What is their financial condition? What is their sources of funds? Now, if you go and start exploring this, number one, it will be very interesting. Interesting in the sense that you are gathering about the microfinance first-hand information. And when you gather this information, after that, you sit down and then you collate that data, categorize that data. And when you categorize, collate, and analyze that data, then you arrive at different kind of conclusions. And some of those conclusions can confuse you. Sometimes you will not know how to interpret the data. Then you go back to your teachers, or you go back to the people from whom you have gathered the data to understand those. And how wonderful will be your understanding of the whole thing. It will get ingrained in you. So, dear friends, this is the relevance of the research in the context of learning commerce subjects of BCom or of BBA. If you look at a curriculum like commerce or curriculum like BBA, this whole curriculum rests on a few pillars. What are these pillars? First and foremost is, we will call it accounting and finance. Second pillar of this is the human resource. We call it human behavior, human resource management. The third one is data analysis. We call it statistics. Fourth pillar is taxation, the tax aspects of working. Fourth is next one is marketing, how to market the product. So these are some of the pillars. And these pillars of commerce and business administration course, they prepare you on establishing new businesses and running new and existing businesses. And the real exposure to be successful in the job or in setting up of the business can take place when you have some practical exposure right at the institution level. And this can be accomplished when you have research-oriented teaching and learning, my dear friends. So, as I would put it, that if a gainful and fruitful education has to take place in the field of commerce and business, then that gainful teaching learning will occur when every topic, or at least every unit, is related to one research project which encourages you for self-learning, number one. Number two, which encourages you to practice again and again. As I said, Abhyas Yog Yuktena. Abhyas Yog Yuktena. This is what Shri Krishna says. Abhyas Yog Yuktena. That is, you are endowed with an ability to link practice. Chetasa na anya gamina. In which your mind does not go anywhere else. Your mind remains engaged in that particular activity. And it will remain engaged when there is an opportunity for you to question a particular phenomenon again, and yet again. And when you are doing research, say for example, I ask you, go and find out the state of microfinance from the point of view of the poor people in the country, or in a particular city, or in a particular village, or in a particular locality. What will you do? Your mind will get automatically absorbed about what information has to be gathered. I've given you the example just now, the kind of questions that I have given you. But I would not tell you those questions when I'm your teacher and teaching you there. You have to find out what questions have to be asked. So you will rake your minds. Automatically, engagement and involvement will take place. As they say, chetasa na anya kamina. Automatically, the attention will not go elsewhere. It will remain absorbed in the subject. And this is what we are talking about. And there is a indirect learning taking place about training your attention also, my dear friends. Not only that you are learning the concept, but at behavioral level, you are also learning how to control your attention. When faced with a problem, you are required to give your best. This is what you are learning in that particular case, my dear friends. So therefore, research-oriented learning is the best learning because at one level, it teaches you to practice again and again. At second level, it involves you deeply into it, deeply, completely into it. Then, sorry, is it okay? Am I exceeding my time? I think I have.
Please go ahead.
You can.
Okay.
Please, you can go.
Okay, fine. So this is what one aspect is, and you know what we say. Often it is said that who becomes really successful in life. So for becoming successful in life, one thing very important required is what we will call commitment. Commitment means that you think of only one thing. And research-oriented learning that makes your mind oriented towards it. Again, I will quote from the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavad Gita. There Shri Krishna says that Ananya Chetaha Sattam Yo Mam Smarati Nityasha. Ananya Chetaha. That is an attention which is devoted only to one aspect. Satatam Smarati. Regularly an attention which thinks only in one particular direction. Tasyaham sulabhapa. To that person, I am available. I am available means here is a metaphor. I would say I am available means success is available. Tasyaham sulabhapa. Arjun, tasyaham, I am available to him. Now replace this word I with success. To that person, success is available. To which person success is available? Ananya chetaha ya yo mam smarati nityasha. One who remembers again and again, ananya, without thinking anything else, then success is available. And this very idea, you know, I was reading a book, somebody had recommended a book. It's a very strange kind of a book. In that book, they have talked about what are the factors that are behind these successful people. In that book, I'm forgetting the name, that was a very famous book. I'm forgetting the name of the book, but the idea is very good. It's a book by a Westerner. There, the person studied the reasons for the success of the people. And the single most important factor that person said was that we were fully committed to our idea of what leads to success. We did not think of anything else except that thing. And we were fully absorbed in that particular idea. Now, this absorption comes, my dear friends, when you are committed to doing something by hand. And this is what actually research is all about. So I do sincerely hope that if the teaching learning in commerce and business takes place, which is oriented towards teaching and learning, then you not only learn attitudinally, that is how to be a person of good attitude, because when you are doing something practically, then you have to interact with the people, you have to gather the data from the people, and you have to get the work done from others also. So you learn behavioral dimensions, how to be a good team person, how to be a good team leader, how to be a good delegator of authority. So this is one aspect that we learn at attitudinal level. And at second level, at intellectual level, at the level of mind, at the level of intellect, you learn concepts, you learn skills, you automatically learn applications, because it helps you in learning by doing. And learning by doing is the best possible way in which we learn. Actually, all that we have learned so far, we have learned because we have learned it all on our own, all by ourselves, So that is what the basic thing is. I do sincerely hope that if the teaching learning process takes place through research-oriented pedagogy, then great objectives of education, and education which is oriented towards creating enlightenment. As I say, Jnanam Vijnana Sahitam, knowledge with wisdom, which leads to auspiciousness, which leads to enlightenment. These objectives will automatically achieve. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, if anyone has any query about the subject, we can request Professor Sharma to answer it.
Dr. Sharma, I would like to ask you a few questions.
Yes, sir.
I fully agree with you on the commitment that you have talked about. That is, I find missing in today's corporate world, where, at least 3 to 4 years of relentless work is required to deliver on any corporate assignment that you take up, or you want to bring in a change in that institution. So I really don't know why our today's current managers do not have that commitment. They get frustrated very fast. And especially the students that are coming from better institutes like SRCC or St. Stephen's or the IITs, because I myself come from an IIT background, that commitment towards the job or commitment towards that organization or commitment towards that goal is missing in that manager as well as his team. So I really do not know, and I have not come up with any kind of model how this can be addressed. But yes, as a professor, you're talking about your institute. So there, definitely at the level that your students get admitted, I can admire and admit that there will be a commitment because they are bothered about their grades and finally their placements or the further studies that are there. That was one observation. I like your concept of Ananya Chetava. Absolutely 100% in sync with you on that. And one question that I had is that how much of this methodology have you implemented in Shri Ram College of Commerce? At this stage, I will leave it at this.
Yeah. So your observations are welcome. As far as the question is concerned, how it has been implemented, the Shri Ram College of Commerce is actually governed by Delhi University of Delhi curriculum. Basically, just as there is no difference between Indian Institute of Finance and Shri Ram College of Commerce. Indian Institute of Finance, College of Commerce is delivering the course which is given by Chaudhry Charan Singh University, and Shri Ram College of Commerce is delivering the course which is given to us by University of Delhi. So there is no provision in the current course for giving the projects, but in economics department of Shri Ram College of Commerce, most of the teachers are giving projects to the students. Similarly, in the commerce department, I wouldn't say all, a good number of teachers give such assignments to the students which encourage them to conduct research on their own. This is one aspect that we are trying to implement it in this way within the given structural constraints. Second thing is that for the last few years, I think it is about 7-8 years now, that we have a research journal which is devoted to the students. The students submit their proposals and their mentors, under some mentors. And those proposals, they pursue either as individuals, mostly they pursue in the group. And then they create a research report, which is then converted in the form of a research article and is ultimately published in that particular research journal called Strides. That is second thing. Third thing is that there is Saurabh has been a student in Shri Ram College of Commerce. Professor J.D. Agarwal has been here as a teacher, as a student in Shri Ram College of Commerce. They all know it. There is a very strong system of societies in the college for extracurricular activities. And through these extracurricular activities, when they participate, their self-learning takes place in terms of how to gather resources, collect resources, create resources, and then utilize those resources. And they work in different ways, and that aspect gives them a learning of this kind. And recently, because Saurabh was here, I think some more than 15, 20 years back, Yamini was also here. Long time back, I think it was in 90s that Yamini was here.
Yes, sir. And 2000 to 2003, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, you were here at that time. Since then, things have changed. Earlier, there used to be lectures by the people who were coming from outside. Now, the number of lectures have actually increased a great lot. A lot of alumni are coming. A lot of politicians are invited. A lot of business executives from different places are asked to come. And they attend the lectures, and the learning takes place through that particular mode also. So these are some of the things that are happening. But I think Indian Institute of Finance in a way is better placed than Shri Ram College of Commerce, because you have much greater autonomy. Though you are delivering the curriculum of Chaudhary Charan Singh University, but in terms of creating the teaching learning, making the teaching learning process as completely that the curriculum is completely integrated with the project work. That kind of liberty you will have, which in Shri Ram College is not there. So that way your students will be better placed than the students in Shri Ram College. I must admit it. Because here we are more governed by the government rules and regulations. And that kind of freedom which you have is not available here for the teaching learning process. And I'm sure you must definitely be doing that kind of a thing, because I know Professor J.D. Agarwal. I know that he's an iconic figure, undoubtedly. And he was my inspiration when I used to see him in Delhi School of Economics, when I was a student in Delhi School of Economics. And later on, it was my great pleasure or honor for me to have joined Shri Ram College of Commerce. But unfortunately, Dr. J.D. Agarwal left Shri Ram College of Commerce the same year in which I joined here. And he never came back after that. So, but in any case, the kind of innovative mind that he has, that from no resources, he created a huge institution like IIF. And you have been able to create a journal that your presence is international. And you are in a Scopus rated journal. You are internationally recognized institution. So that he has been able to create over time. So this kind of innovations, I'm sure, must be happening in your institution. And teaching learning would definitely be happening in the sense that you must be providing knowledge and information to the students at all the levels that I stated just now, at the level of concept, at the level of skill, at the level of application, and then something which is really useful for the society in general. So this is what I had to say in respect of this. I hope I've answered the question.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Any other query? Any other question? Now I'd like to request Professor Aman Agarwal to present.
Dr. Panda, one question was raised that how to generate commitment, whether students or employees, how to generate commitment for the organization or for the course or for the institution. So for that question, I would like to answer that to generate commitment, whether a student who is studying some course, that very beautifully, as Dr. Sharma said, the practicability. The one thing that a student to be focused with that, and if he knows that this will give you the benefit to him and to the surrounding and neighborhood and in future, it will be very helpful for him. He will be focused for that. He will be committed towards that. So generate that how it will be beneficial to him. So not only concept to be taught, not only skill is to be taught, but how it is used and how it is beneficial for that person, for that neighbor, for the society, and for the whole economy. Now, if we understand this, anyone who understands this, how it is beneficial, whatever one is doing, whatever act one is doing, whether one is a student or one is working in the organization, the person will be committed towards that and the focus will be there. And the way Dr. Sharma said, Ananya Chetavan, that words, that movement, that will make him towards that direction. And certainly it will lead to growth of individual, growth of village, growth of state, growth of society, growth of economy. And objective of anything, any activity is to grow, to prosper. And it will bring prosperity to them. So this is what we teach in our organization, that how you can grow, how you can prosper, how you can bring not only wealth to yourself, but wealth to the others also. And simultaneously, it will multiply, it will have a multiplier effect and you can grow. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the spirit of the present education policy. Well, any other observation we have?
Yeah, any other questions or observations? We can hold for a minute or two more. They can raise their hand if they want to ask a question, something, or open up your mic and ask a question, please. Okay, then since there are no questions, there has been a lot of curiosity which has been generated. I was listening. I could not be from the very beginning, but I did join after 10-15 minutes. And then it was very interesting to see the way the new curriculum as well as the way teaching is taking place at colleges now. My intake of colleges was 25 years back. So there, the scenario was quite different at that time and what it is today. But both with the new education policy in place and the way Dr. Sharma has outlined is, very critically coming out that the way importance of research has been given, not only at postgraduate level programs, which used to be the focus about 15, 20 years back, but more now at even graduate programs like the BCom and the BPA. And this is going to further enhance with the interdisciplinary focus which new education policy brings in and the dynamism it brings in terms of, you could choose multiple programs like we had Mr. Anil Kumar. There was some question where one could choose music, and Dr. Panda would remember there was someone could choose music as a minor discipline and still do commerce or arts or business administration as part of their course curriculum. Now, this is something which is new and will open up the framework as we can see happen in large part of the United States in particular, where they had this flexibility of wanting to do. And this research component is also critical given the fact that most ratings, rankings, and evaluations worldwide are based on the kind of research output and the research contribution which individuals, whether it is students or faculty or staff, does at the organization. Then, just the teaching and producing good quality students or good citizens for a country. Now, this is something which was very clearly visible from Dr. Sharma's talk and how that has got imbibed in the system. And, it is important that we just don't change the system. So what we came to know from Dr. Sharma's talk today was also the fact that there has been this building block process of stepwise, stairwise approach where that research component has got slowly and slowly imbibed into the system. And it is getting more engraved now, even at the undergraduate level in terms of teaching. I remember a couple of years back, this internship program was introduced at the undergraduate level as well. So that after every year of their closure of the first year and second year, all students were asked to do practical internship, go join organizations to do internship. And this was something also very interesting because that helps you understand what you are studying in your classes, is what is the practical relevance of it. Now, from an undergraduate program perspective, that also in a way is a kind of research which one is able to imbibe in to intermatch both the theoretical aspects taught at the university or the college and the practical aspects of life of doing business when he or she goes on the floor shop level in any organization. So from that perspective, I see that research, the practical aspects of that research coming there as well in a way. So it's very illuminating of what Dr. Sharma has said and how different streams, different fields, different structures get entangled and how one can actually build upon their own resources, what one can do, what one cannot do, and how can, by taking help of teachers, universities, libraries, and other facilities which are available, even workshops like this, which the IIF College of Commerce and Management Studies is organizing, to get a better understanding of what one is expected to be doing, performing, to enhance their efficiency, performance, and productivity at the end of the day. So, with that, I would like to thank Dr. Sharma for sparing his time and making this information available to us, everybody, to benefit from it. Because ultimately, the end result, as people say, is in the jobs, the kind of jobs which we are able to get. And today, irrespective of the kind of job, even if you have to do marketing or sales, you have to do research. You have to look at how do you go capture your consumers, take care of them. There's so much of diversity in India and even world around that we're looking at a world market with the internet as playground. And given that every aspect of job looks at that research, and that needs to be kept in mind. And the only thing which I would like to add here again is the last time that you have to constantly do it. It is something which has to be constantly done. Thinking that you studied 3 years and done your bit of research and now you can go into the job industry and make your mark for the next 30 years is not something which can happen today. It had worked maybe in the 50s or 60s. I don't know if it really worked because people did enhance their human capital, what they learned, how did they go forward. So it is not that they did not learn, and those who did not learn stuck to whatever positions they were in their organization, did not grow further ahead. So if you want that growth in the organization, in your salaries, your job profiles, you will have to have a constant component of research being done at your personal level, at your professional level, to actually enhance your skills and performance. And I think that is something which was clearly coming out through what Professor Sharma spoke. Shriram College of Commerce does not only produce A category or very good students, but it also has excellent professors. And that is something which I always say, the gurus, not only here, I would say large number of colleges and University of Delhi have very good faculty. There are over 9,000 plus faculty members. Dr. Panda can correct me. He's been heading the university in the administrative front. But out of that 8,000 plus, I would say about 85 to 90% of them are really serious researchers. Very good researchers, very fundamental and authentic research they end up doing. Some people are, for some reason or the other, are not able to do that. But given the focus, what Dr. Sharma pointed out today, it is clearly evident that that number will grow further. And we will see not only the faculty, but the students building that block forward. I would like to thank Dr. Sharma for sparing his time, for enlightening us. I would like to thank Saurabh to have requested and have had Dr. Sharma come and enlighten us on this topic. As Saurabh told me, we are going to keep these videos, which he is getting as workshops done online on YouTube for people across the globe to benefit, so that they can not only listen to what was going on today, but which will be there tomorrow as well. Anyone wants to read this information tomorrow can benefit for it for free. There is no charge which we are placing on this, because we see it as our responsibility, our social contribution to the society as an institution, to bring in rich resources like Dr. Sharma, Dr. Panda and others to come and deliberate and give their words of wisdom, so that we could be better people tomorrow, making a better world for every one of us. Thank you, Dr. Sharma. Thank you, Saurabh. Thank you, Dr. Manju Agarwal. Thank you, Dr. Panda, for being there. And all our participants and people from the media who have participated in our event. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The meeting is officially over. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you. I am ending the meeting.